Well, we opened the book on October the 23rd, 1942, which was a great day for the British Army, in that the army had been pushed back in North Africa, all the way back to the gates of Alexandria, almost back to Cairo. I began the book from the point of view of an ordinary soldier. I didn't want to start with a commander or a general. I just thought I'd start with an ordinary man, but he's not an ordinary man at all, of course. He's an extraordinary man. He's a captain in the Argyle and Southern Highlanders, who were a key regiment in the battle, and he left an extraordinary diary of the battle and his involvement in it. It's been labelled a battle without hate, and that intrigued me. How two apparently totally antagonistic armies could actually fight each other to the death and yet not hate each other. It involved not just the British and the Germans, but the British and their allies, so New Zealanders, Australians, Indians, the Free French, the Greeks, all sorts of different Commonwealth troops, versus the Germans, but also the Italians, because in fact the whole war in North Africa had been a consequence of Italy's expansionist policy, and it was the Germans sent out initially an expeditionary force to shore up the Italian army, and that turned into Panzer Army Afrika, which we all know as the Afrika Korps. And so it's a very diverse battle, which can be looked at from a whole number of different angles. As Churchill said, before Alamein there was no victory, after Alamein there was victory, and that was the difference. It was the turning point. Samwell, the Argyle's officer, looks back and thinks back to his wife and children in Stirlingshire, in the same way that Rispoli thinks back to his castle in Umbria. And I think that's vitally important to give the whole picture and the whole character of the man, because they're not just soldiers, they're men, and they have feelings and thoughts, and they think about other things most of the time. Finding the people on which to base the characters is always a bit of a struggle, although in Alamein the starting point was really fairly simple. There are some very good first-hand accounts and very good histories. One real contender was a chap called Tom Bird, who was in the Rifle Brigade and fought heroically and won an MC at a position called Snipe, holding off 2 divisions of German tanks with 13 6-pounders, which is quite a feat. You'd have thought the desert hadn't changed that much, and it probably hasn't. There are more pylons, there's more evidence of contemporary life, there's a ghastly museum and 3 very emotive cemeteries. But the big problem with Alamein is there are 500,000 mines, and if you go there, as I went with my family, you do not walk off the road unless you're with a guide. I didn't go with a guide, which I might well do in the future. I'd like to go back. Possibly the most interesting thing for me, and the most vivid reminder, is that, which is the top of a German mess tin. That's the bit you boiled up, and it acted as a lid on the top of the actual tin containing whatever food you could manage to bring to the battlefield. This is a very moving piece of equipment. It's all that's left of a German belt. It's obviously been blown off the wearer, and it's been slightly distorted, but it's very clearly bears the Nazi eagle and the rather sad and poignant "Gott mit uns" logo. One of the reasons that I wanted to write about World War II was that I believe it was the last just war, and that's something that intrigues me. Justification for war, the moral responsibility of making war, is something that absolutely fascinates me, and which I've touched on in the Jack Steele books in the only way I can, but in this book I'm able to explore much further.